What's going on? Welcome back, Banner Prestige, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Today we are going to review a few video clips. We're going to talk about a few things. Um, we're going to talk about a man called an influencer. Let's say an influencer, a YouTuber. Oshay Duke Jackson did a review of Devon Franklin, who used to be the husband to Meagan Good, right? So we're going to talk about that, and there are a couple of videos I want to get through. I want to get to it. I don't want to waste your time. There's a couple of lessons I want to extract out of this. So without any further ado, first of all, congratulations for making it to this video. Please go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, share, comment, the whole thing, the whole 9 yard, so that we can also let other people that we know have something going up here. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. All right. With that being said, let's get started. And these are sizable books. They are minimum 200 pages. You can download them absolutely for free by simply going to, for example, this one, you just go to getmymarriageback.com, smartrealestatewholesaling.com, realestatemoneysecrets.com. So yes, I am a 3 times author, and those books are out there for your consumption, and they are also available everywhere on Amazon, anywhere that you pick up books. So in case you prefer a physical book like that. All right.
How can somebody who has failed relationships coach other people to successful relationships? Well, let's bring in another, candidate for this, or another example, Mr. Kevin Samuels. Now, the late great Kevin Samuels had this criticism. He's been married twice, divorced twice. How can he help people when he himself was divorced twice? Well, we've seen countless stories of people being helped by Mr. Kevin Samuels. It's almost buffoonish as saying, like, you must play in the NBA in order to coach NBA players. And the reality is that you can coach people in yourself having a bad experience at it. Do you want to know why? Because you just have a whole different concept, an oblique concept at something that the people who are doing it, they actually don't know. Just like, some of the best coaches never played in the NBA or were not that good. Like, look at Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr played in the NBA, but was he as good as, let's say, Magic Johnson? Magic Johnson was terrible as a coach. Steve Kerr is going to go down as one of the greatest coaches in the NBA. Why? He just knows how to teach people.
All right, so let's talk about this really quickly. Let me just make sure that we're live, just in case. I don't want to have to talk to myself, and then we were never live. That wouldn't be cute, right? So let's first of all talk about what this gentleman is talking. He's talking about the idea of a coach being able to coach people even if they've never been successful at what they're coaching about. All right. To coach people even. All right. Awesome. We just wanted to make sure that the audio is good. Now, do you have to be successful at something to be able to coach? It depends on what we're talking about, right? It depends on what we're talking about. Now, there's some fundamental differences between where that will be true. Like, it's okay to coach people if you've never been successful at something. And there's some other things where I feel like it's not feasible. You know, there's some other things like that. I'm just trying to make sure that the audio is good here. I may tomorrow I'll figure this out. I may have to clear out this computer that we're using to live stream. But anyway, let's talk about this really quickly. When it comes to stuff that involve romantic, emotionally driven relationships, I think we have to be careful with that. We have to be careful with the idea that you can coach people even if you're never successful with it. Okay? Why? because it involves multiple layers of variables, and those variables, a lot of them are emotionally driven. Okay. So, for example, with romantic relationships, people come out of relationship, they're hurt, right? And they're trying to coach other people. Obviously, for obvious reasons, a lot of their perspective will be driven by fear and pain. Now, pain is a good thing, believe it or not, right? Fear, if your moves are fear driven, we have to be careful with that. There are certain aspects of life where we kind of want you to have a little of fear because the fear will drive you to make sure you do the right things, right? So, with that being said, I would be careful, with hiring a coach that have failed woefully at marriage to coach you in marriage. Um, for even if they don't intend to teach you this kind of things, your natural instinct of questions you would want to ask them is to ask them things to avoid, right? What are the loopholes? What are the pitfalls? That would naturally be your focus if if you as a person have deemed it fit to choose this person, right? So, for example, he made an example of Kevin Samuels, right? He said one of his biggest criticisms is that he was divorced twice. And then he goes ahead to say, hey, you know, this numerous examples of people he has helped. He's helped a lot of people from a mindset standpoint. In terms of getting actual results, I think we can count on one hand how many people came out to say he's helped them actually achieve marriage successfully or relationship successfully. We have tons, if not millions, but thousands upon thousands of people say he's helped me. He helped me not hurting myself when people that experience breakup and they needed to hear him encouraging them indirectly. A lot of men, they liked the idea that it was holding women accountable, so it made them feel like they were not alone, right? We have, yes, thousands of those, but people that actually got quote unquote results, if I'm saying tangible results, as in like they got you know um engaged. We had the Dennis guy who said he was engaged because of Kevin Samuel's group. Then we maybe have maybe two or three other people who say yes. I actually know one person personally that was able to save their marriage because of his rhetorics. So I'll give him that credit. So you can see I'm giving credit. But in terms of like, oh yeah, he's just helping this numerous people. That's cap. Okay, that's cap. Okay. Now, does that mean he didn't have any value to the to 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 his community? I'm sure he had it because again, emotionally, if people feel stronger and solid and more confidence because they heard it, Kevin Samuel, to me that's tangible enough as well, right? But there's a lot of cap in what O'Shea is saying for obvious reasons. It's his boy. He was his boy, and he's supporting him. So I get that they're in the same blah blah, community, in the same gang, you know. But to now use that to say, hey, Devon Franklin, who was ex-husband to Meagan Good, in case you don't know what I'm talking about, uh, that's Meagan Good to the corner of the thumbnail right there. Okay, and that's O'Shea himself, right? But yeah, to now go ahead and say, hey, you could just go ahead and start advising people on. You can tell them, like he said in his video, he rightfully said that you can tell them what not to do, but that's not good enough. That's playing defense with relationships. If you have any experience in relationships, you know that it's not enough. Like any other game that matters in life, it's not enough to be playing defense. You have to play offense. What else do you have in place to play offense? Meaning designed to help you win at the game of romantic relationships and marriages. What else do you have in place? Okay. So I'm gonna play that video one more time so we can dissect it because again, ultimately I disagree with him in this video. I think at least you need to go through proper healings, which I don't think Kevin Samuels went through after divorce. It just doesn't seem that way. He said a lot of things that made sense, but in terms of being able to teach people to build successful relationship, I think it was more so concerned. Probably though, probably because he was making money doing it, which I can also respect that. But it was much more. a lot of his last videos were just about bashing women. Okay, not bashing, but holding women accountable. And holding women accountable and then neglecting the man doesn't really do a society much good, in my opinion. Okay, I think we needed to make sure that we had enough masculine men who can lead, who are competent enough. And I know my personal opinion on that women naturally follow suit. Takes time, it's a process. But that's what my personal belief system is, something that I've lived and I've, successfully married for 15 years. Okay. Doesn't mean perfect. It just means I'm still married. Uh knock on wood, right? Actually there are skill sets involved for me to stay married. There's skill sets involved in being able to carry a long-term relationship and keep that woman, and on the woman's side too, yes. And I think that's what it was more focused on. I just think that this society that we still live in required leadership was a scarce commodity, and we don't have it. we have uh, we have a lot of incompetent men. Okay, I feel like that's what our focus should be, um, as a society. And unfortunately that doesn't make as much money, so I can understand if he decided to make a business decision, a business move, to focus where he focused, right? So I don't think it's a good comparison. I don't think Devon will want to do that. So the idea is that, okay, he found a new job on, I think, Married at First Sight on Netflix. He's going to be a host and advise people. And he's hoping that he will go the route of Kevin Samuels. I would hope not. Okay, I would hope that they have another person who can teach young men, especially, how to play the offense when it comes to building successful romantic relationships, especially in marriage. If all you're doing is protecting yourself, you're going to lose the game, because there's always other people playing offense. And yes, she will still dump you if all you're doing is playing defense. Again, you're just putting her in a position where she will have to defend herself all the time. And if you understand how the human brain works, that's not going to work. You need to be playing both. She needs to feel safe around you. She also needs to feel like she can't walk all over you. Just preventing her not walking all over you is not good enough. You need both. Okay. So let's play the video one more time.
Failure. How can somebody who has failed relationships coach other people?
They can, but they can only coach one side of the equation. They can coach you on the pitfalls to avoid, the mistakes they made. But then they should also lead you to other people that are doing it successfully, so they can show you how to play the offense side of things and be able to proactively build a meaningful, a healthy relationship. And if you don't do that, you will just basically always be in a position looking over your shoulder all the time, and that relationship will not be fun. And you need it to be fun. Okay, as much as you need it to be duty, responsibility, building a life, building an empire, you need to be able to say, I'm in an environment where I feel happy. And if you're not, it's all going to backfire. So I'm not saying they can't coach you something. I'm saying it's only half of the equation. And I would rather that this person, Devon Franklin, go make sure he go through proper healing before he attempts to coach anyone. I don't care if he's a pastor. I don't care if he can teach the Bible back and forth with relationship. He's had an experience that has traumatized him. Either he realizes it or not. And he needs to at least make sure it's not transmitting that pain into other people. Because if you end up in that position where you're being coached by a person that all their rhetoric is fear and pain driven, again, that's not good enough.
To successful relationships. Well, let's bring in another, candidate for this, or another example, Mr. Kevin Samuels. Now, the late great Kevin Samuels had this criticism. He's been married twice, divorced twice. How can he help?
He had admitted himself that he could have done better. So I'm not saying anything new if you follow him at all. Well, did he said a lot of things and like help a lot of people? Like one thing I liked about what he used to say is, "Have you spoken to therapy?" I like that. So this is nothing to bash his image or anything like that. It's just to say, hey, in general, generally speaking, if someone has been divorced twice, by the way, the more divorced they are, the higher the chances they would be divorced again, right? Just numbers, right? Just the statistics that we know. Now, with that being said, Yes, it can teach you one or two things, but that's just at maximum half of the skill set, the tips that you need to survive a long-term relationship.
People when he himself was divorced twice. Well, we've seen countless stories.
Countless stories. No, that's cap. Countless stories of men who say he helped me build confidence again. Yes. And I attached lots of value to that. Okay, but that's just about it. Some people are claiming, walking around saying they have confidence, and they can't even step up and talk to a lady. They can't hold a healthy conversation with a woman. That's not enough. Okay, and that's ton of what I'm seeing personally. Okay, now if you know anyone or you know a channel where they're showcasing all those people, countless, please let me know because I haven't seen them, and I am in this space and I'm paying attention.
Of people being helped by Mr. Kevin Samuels. It's almost buffoonish as saying like you must play in the NBA in order to coach NBA players. And the reality is that you can coach people.
Well, a game where you're the one only responsible for winning that game, and we can coach you to high performance is quite different from a situation or a game where there are two adults, a minimum of two adults involved, in which case you have to learn how to manage your own emotions. And in addition to that, you have to manage other people's emotions. Either you realize it or not. That's a different ball game entirely. Again, we're talking about emotional damages, emotional pain, emotional trauma. It's a different ball game altogether. So I wouldn't exactly compare a game, right? Athletic type game, or with buying a. Some people want to give example. They say, "Hey, what if you go into the marketplace and you buy a Bentley?" And they start to talk about sexual marketplace like these are not human beings. It's quite different. Okay.
In yourself having a bad experience at it. Do you want to know why? Because you just have a whole different concept, an oblique concept.
Yes, usually that concept or that standpoint or that perception is usually half of what's going to transpire in another person's relationship or less, half or less. So, yes, I agree. I concede. No, not really. I agree that they do have some perspective, right? From a standpoint of failure, fear, pain that they can share with you. But like I said, there's more to it. If you plan on winning in that game, right? So it's very important.
At something.
So even when we use the example of athletes, right? You have a coach you, but you have people watch people's highlights. You have people, you have some of these athletes. They will go watch videos of the greats, the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryant. Why do they do that? Because in addition to what the coach is saying, they also need to see the greats doing it. So again, this is not a fair comparison. This is why I feel Oshay Duke Jackson is wrong. Like many times, is wrong. But I also, like I've always said, I can respect some of his rhetorics. His rhetorics is usually red pill driven, especially Black manosphere driven. So that you can expect that I would disagree with him at least half the way. But I think it's a lot more balanced than most of these other lames. But nonetheless, on this one, I disagree.
That the people who are doing it, they actually don't know. Just like, some of the best coaches never played in the NBA or we're not that good. Like, look at Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr played in the NBA, but was he as good?
Yeah, he's right about that. You don't have to be a good coach because you can play. All right. You don't have to be a good coach. But you, as a person planning to win in a game, you need to pay attention to your coach. Yes, they would know some things from a theoretical standpoint and just being a student of the game, being a student of the game, but also watching people that have actually won playing the game. We're not just gonna say, "Hey, I'm just gonna coach myself using my coach, and I don't need to watch the greats of the game." That would be kind of stupid, right? Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
As, let's say, Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was terrible as a coach. Steve Kerr is going to go down as one of the greatest coaches in the NBA. Why? He just knows how to teach people.
And these are sizable books. They are minimum 200 pages. You can download them absolutely for free by simply going to, for example, this one, you just go to getmymarriageback.com, smartrealestatewholesaling.com, realestatemoneysecrets.com. So yes, I am a 3 times author, and those books are out there for your consumption, and they are also available everywhere on Amazon, anywhere that you pick up books. So in case you prefer a physical book like that.
See, this is something that Devon Franklin is going to probably have to do. He's going to teach people how not to do the same bad things that he did. And
All right, so he's going to teach people defense. That's valuable, okay? But if he doesn't have proper perspective on winning long term, at least with respect to present time, real time results, is it possible that his perspective will be off? Like I said, fear and pain driven. All right. Now, the kind of person that will gravitate towards him to teach them anything about marriage, they would tend to also be people looking for a way to protect themselves, which there's nothing wrong with. But if that's all they're focused on, is that good? No, that's not good. You need to learn all the things you don't want to do, all the mistakes, yes, but you also need to learn all the things that you can do from, from the analogy of a game, offense, what you can do to make sure to ensure that you win in the game of, you know, in that game of marriage, right? And long term relationships.
I think if he's able to really do more, he'll be able to teach men how not to pick the wrong traits in a wife.
So how not to pick the wrong trait, completely neglecting that maybe he didn't pick the wrong trait. Maybe he was incompetent. Maybe he was an incompetent husband. Those are two things. There's two possible things, minimum of two possible things that could go wrong. There's obviously tons of other things like incompatibility, mismatch of culture, religion, lifestyle, which we know Meagan Good and Devon Franklin had two different lifestyles. Yes, from looking from outside in, they didn't belong together, but yet they managed to spend 9 years together, right? So two things: is either incompetent husband or he picked the wrong woman. But he would tend to, like most of these people in the manosphere, the gurus in the manosphere, most of them, they would tend to focus on how to avoid picking the wrong woman. And then they leave at least half the equation of what it takes to create a successful marriage, which is how do you become a competent man, a competent husband? What are the things, like if we just, not worry about her for a second, what are the things on my part that I could do that I'm supposed to be doing to make sure that I protect my home, that I keep my home together? Like if everything else were being equal, what are the things I can control? And now we're going to have someone who will probably tend to point fingers at the other side and say, hey, it's all her fault, right? And then focus on, hey, vetting. Let's just vet. Like, and then someone that won't focus on conflict resolution, which is another side of which I think is the most important thing when it comes to building any type of relationship. There will be inevitably there will be conflict, regardless of how good you are at vetting. I do think vetting is good. I do think premarital counseling is good, but I think only to a certain extent. What about when life presents itself? When life happens and you're presented with a crisis, a conflict, how do you handle that? This kind of man or this kind of person would tend not to focus on that. They would focus on how to avoid picking the wrong woman. That's not enough.
That's fundamentally what we're dealing with here. And what do I want to talk about with that, guys? As black men, we are really looking at the wrong things when it comes to women.
And these are sizable books. They are minimum 200 pages. You can download them absolutely for free by simply going to, for example, this one, you just go to getmymarriageback.com, smartrealestatewholesaling.com, realestatemoneysecrets.com. So yes, I am a 3 times author, and those books are out there for your consumption, and they are also available everywhere on Amazon, anywhere that you pick up books. So in case you prefer a physical book like that.
What are our boundaries? This is something that's very important. I had a relationship once and I tried to set my boundaries.
All right. So he's talking about vetting and setting boundaries in the beginning of a relationship. Again, oh, that his heart is nothing wrong with it. It's happened to the best of us, by the way. That's why we're able to talk about this, right? His heart is heartbroken, right? So he's only talking from that standpoint. Set boundaries, set boundaries, set boundaries. That's maximum one half of that equation. Okay. If you set boundaries, you're setting it for yourself. The idea is not to control another person because that will never work. Now, people can respect your boundary and leave you alone, damn near break up with you and break your family and your home all together as well, too, right? Even if you're married. So just setting boundaries, when you mix that together with unrealistic expectations, it still produces a bad result. Not enough, okay? So let's listen.
Too late. Like 2 years. A relationship once and I tried to set my boundaries. Too late. Like 2 years. Too late. Guess what? The relationship had already ran its course because I didn't set those boundaries up in the beginning.
Yeah, anything you set in the beginning is just that. It doesn't make you useless. It's good for the beginning. Again, life happens, real life events, right? Crisis, conflict, right? Are you able to adapt to changes in society with respect to your relationship or your relationship with respect to society? Or you're just stuck. You're not able to adapt. You're not able to evolve with the times. Do you conflict evolving with the times with evolving or compromising on your values? Do you understand the difference between the two, or you're just mixing everything all up all over the place, right? Again, these are the things that create competence as a husband. Just like we say a woman has to be a wife, you also have to be a husband in order to maintain a marriage. If you're not able to maintain a marriage. You're not able to maintain long-term relationships. Why? Because another person's emotions are involved. Are you responsible for their emotions? No, but you are part of the influence, the environment that that would nurture that relationship, right? We're not gonna cap about that, right? All right.
When I had the opportunity in the position of strength to do so. So, and many of you guys know how that happens, right? You try to set your boundaries too late. You want to stand up for yourself too late.
Yeah, setting your boundaries too late. No, it's not. It's none of that. It has nothing to do with maybe a little bit, right? But it's bigger than that. More so, I would want you to be able to be a husband. I can't say that enough. There are skill sets involved in that. Like it doesn't matter how perfect she is, right? You will need to be able to, you will need to be able to be a husband. You need abilities, you need skill sets. There are skill sets involved in that. So I got a couple of comments that, that I'm going to drop in here that I saw on that same video. You can go subscribe to him, by the way. Shout out to Oshay Duke Jackson. He puts out lots of content. So he's another gift that keeps giving in terms of content creators, and we're able to react and respond, and iron sharpens iron. Nobody knows it all, But I think you need to bow and respect me when it comes to this, at least of today. When it comes to this marriage and long-term relationship thing, I think he would agree too. All right, so now let's keep going here. Now, I got some comments here on that same video that I feel like we should uh, go ahead and look at. Okay, so here's a comment. Okay, here's a comment. This comment says, "Getting a divorce doesn't make you a failure. Staying with a lousy woman makes you a failure." So that's a person assuming that all cases of a divorce equals to a lousy woman. You see how that falls short right on his face, like instantly? Like that fell on his face, like instantly, right? That's the assumption that only lousy women create divorces. Also, lousy men create divorce. Both, either a lousy man, a lousy woman create divorce. A prideful man will create divorce. A prideful woman will create divorce. Division in opinions, incompatibilities, right? and not being able to adapt to change will create divorce. There are things outside of your control, both of you's control, believe it or not, that can create divorce, right? So staying with a lousy man makes you a failure. Not some people actually escape relationships. And he says, I ain't no nerd. This person is exactly a nerd, if not worse than a nerd. No disrespect to nerds, okay? All right, so that's one right there. Uh, the next one here, let's go here. It says, nice slogan, but divorce is a failure. So divorce is a type of failure. Why do people think that's an indictment? That's not an indictment. We've all failed in one aspect of life, one way or the other. As a matter of fact, I've been married for 15 years. In some respect, I consider myself lucky because once you go past the mark 10 years, you figured something out. Okay. It doesn't mean it's last forever. It's perfect, but I'm saying I'm talking about this right now. I guarantee you, I would not be talking about this if I am in a shitty relationship or marriage. Okay, I'm saying it because I realize this. There are skill I've come to find out, right, with the experience that there are skill sets involved. And if you're shitty, you're going to create a lousy marriage, a shitty marriage anyway, right? Even if your wife is perfect, or vice versa, right? So now divorce is a failure. You need to acknowledge that first in order to learn anything out of it. If you don't acknowledge that, how are you going to learn? Right? Now, I understand if it's a saying you're manifesting, I get that. But in the grand scheme of things, you have to admit that, hey, I failed. At least 50% of that relationship, you were responsible for it, right? So maybe there's one or two things you can learn from that, right? All right. So now let's go to so staying with her is actually necessary, not only so you learn to regret patiently. So I'm not too sure what that means, but those of us that stay together or decide to work on our marriage when we hit crisis, we're not dumber than you. There's a highly good chance that we're actually wiser than you, right? Especially if I'm talking about it, right? I understand there are some bad marriages out there, but they tend not to talk about it, right? All right, good. So, but again, nuances. The point here is that we don't know what we don't know, but it's okay to say divorce is a failure. It's not a long lasting forever failure. There are people that divorce and they end up with the right person eventually, in the right marriage eventually, and they successfully became successful. But we also know that the numbers are terrible. Once you go through one divorce, the second divorce and third divorce is 75% chances as opposed to 50% chance or somewhere around that. So you want to make sure you go through proper healing. Okay, you can see on this street with divorcees the kind of advice they give are usually terrible. Or people that have failed at long-term relationship, they tend to give terrible advices. They tend to advise from a place of pain and fear, and holding the other group of people accountable. You see women holding all men as comes accountable. You see men doing the same thing, just in polar opposite direction. This person says, please stay single and safe, fellas. Right? If somebody would find this advice useful, right, there's a good chance they wouldn't listen to you, right? There's a good chance they're already doing that. They want to be single, but most people engaged in this kind of conversation don't want to be single, including you, Constable Kennedy. Okay, usually that's not the case, right? So let's call the cap immediately before we move any further. And don't come here trying to act like, oh, you're trying to save the other group of men. You have a cape on for men. That's cap, okay? You're engaged in this conversation because you're the type of person that you want a woman to fall in love with you. All right? But now this is a good protective measure for yourself, I guess, right? So some of us can see through that all the way. And then I ain't no nerd again says, and that's okay. There are no absolutes. So I think it was responding to this comment right here, right? Which is a divorce is a failure, right? So he goes, and that's okay. There are no absolutes. However, a lot of men have been duped by modern women pretending to be worthy of the title wife. That's true. But that doesn't have to have anything to do with you. You have to focus on working on yourself and your ability to attract the right kind of woman to yourself. Not only that, but having the skill set to maintain long-term relationships, having the skill set to handle conflict, crisis, right? So that at least you are aware that real life will present some curveballs, right? And when you're aware, that's half the battle won already. But if you're just out here pretending like everybody else, like, no, I'm just perfect, life would never happen to me. Well, it's coming from a blind spot, obviously, right? Um, Ronnie says, so what does choosing a lousy woman say about you? This is a person responding to this. The person that says lousy woman, right? So what does choosing a lousy woman say about you? That's a good question, right? It doesn't have to say anything about you, but it's a question that you must look in the mirror and answer, right? Yeah, exactly. It says you are a failure at selecting a wife, or you are a failure at compromising a necessary ingredient in any relationship over time. Over time, sometimes you need to compromise, right? Why? Because there are greater good reward that follows that. Because there are greater good when you're able to maintain a healthy relationship as well, right? So sometimes that means in the short term you take a little L, compromise. We call it compromise, just so you can take a big W, a big win overall, right? Are you able to discern? Are you able to understand what I just said, or everything I just said sound like simpish gibberish to you? If it does, there goes your result that you've been creating. Okay. All right. So let's go here. What else? What else we got? Let's see. We got it is a failure. That's why you're supposed to do your due diligence before. We're talking about if being a divorcee means you failed. It's a short term failure. We've all gone through that. You can't avoid acknowledging that if you want to create better results, okay? That's why you're supposed to do your due diligence before you get on your knee as a man. Now, I halfway disagree with this. Just doing your due diligence is not enough, right? You need to have the skill set to maintain long term, because every single day is a brand new day. And women will shit test you regardless of how good you vetted in the beginning. Okay. Are you able to handle that? Do you have the skill set to handle that? Or you would just rather just do men goes their own way, meet gal all day. Either way, you're capping, because you find your way back to the IG models, you find your way back to OnlyFans, watching too much porn, and destroying yourself just because you're not capable. Right? Am I speaking too much facts here? Too much fact. Nah, feelings over facts, okay? And ask a woman to marry you, it goes both ways. I actually think it's one way when it comes to this conversation. Focus on what you can control. Focus on the idea that you influence what gives you power, okay? Her, she gets to handle her business as an individual. She get attracted to you because there's a symbiotic relationship. She finds some other type of value that's not the same kind of value that you get, right? But in terms of what you can control, focus on one way. Because when you start to focus on the other side, then you start to cry like a bitch. She's not reciprocating, blah, blah, blah. She's a lazy dater. You put too much energy on that, then you lose your focus, right? All right, so let's see here. Another one here says, just because someone has failed doesn't mean they can't teach you about what doesn't work. No, it actually means they can teach you what doesn't work for them, what didn't work for them, which could be false altogether. It could be them capping, it could be them not holding themselves accountable, but the narrator, you're able to relate because of a reason too, but it's usually not holistic. It's not, you're not looking for a holistic, you're not looking to how to win, you're looking for how to protect yourself. You need both. Okay? Experience ain't only about good things. Yes, that's true. But we need to make sure that context matters, that we're reading this all the way through, all the way through. Okay? All right, so here's a long one here by P. Arthur, which I thought was a good one. Okay? He says, from personal experience in making similar mistakes in relationships, I would respectfully suggest it is too soon for Mr. Franklin. Okay? This is Mr. Franklin right here. That's the ex husband of beautiful, fine ass Meagan Good. Okay? I would suggest that Mr. Franklin to offer dating mating advice to that is too soon for Mr. Franklin to offer dating mating advice to other men recovering emotionally. psychologically and mentally from bad divorce. And honestly, Mr. Franklin had a bad divorce. Yes, he did. Okay? Takes time, at least a year, and in some cases longer. Those are the facts. Okay, all mixed in my feeling. I'm excited about this commentary here. Next, a man's recovery or rebuilding phase from a poor breakup requires intensive coaching by men. Okay, yes. Oh, yes, we do offer coaching. You can see the scrolling theme underneath. Okay, um, by men who have demonstrated masters of the game. Like, what is this idea about focusing on people that have failed at the game? Like, why? Why so much focus on that, right? I know that we're very few of us that are doing it successfully. That I know because of obvious reasons, it's not toxic enough. But still, I just noticed that so many people focus on the people that have failed at the game to advise people, right? That's why people are actively trying to pull down Will and Jada's marriage. Like, why? Why do we gravitate towards that kind of direction so much faster, right? Especially as black people, right? Yes, dating modern women in the 24th century is a case book example of both academic game theory and street game. Yes, it is challenging. No one is discounting that. It's still your responsibility as a man to figure it out because you're not going anywhere. You're going to be, Thailand is not another world. Ghana and Nigeria is not another world. They are getting as fast as humanly possible westernized, just as much. Why? Because they found some kind of value in doing exactly that. Are you going to figure that out? You're going to continue to bitch about that, right? Mr. Franklin has not shown he has acknowledged his dating mating strategy was in dire need of serious reworking, renovation by finding and coming under the tutelage of an alpha red pill. He edited it, but I like it so far. I like it so far, right? Let's go through to this one right here. And lastly, after having been under the care and I think this is the second part of it. Exacting regime of a game master, Mr. Franklin needs to confirm his rehabilitation from beta simpdom. Okay, I smell a lot of simp in Oshay still, by the way. It's not an indictment. Just again, it's not an absolute. It's just sometimes some of the rhetoric, this idea of rhetoric that is just always women's fault. I think it doesn't mean that I've seen him hold men accountable as well, but I think it's overwhelmingly holding women accountable, right? And successfully exiting at least one, preferably three relationships with modern women who are at least at his ex-wife's level or better. All right, so that's that's intellectual diarrhea to a large extent, but I agree with it. Okay. Now this one is what I posted as a response there some hours back. Okay, and I would like to read that to you as well. Okay, I said Devon Franklin will not be ready anytime soon to give advice on maintaining long-term relationships. Maybe he can teach you how to pick up women and dump, then pump and dump. I doubt that because he's a pastor, right? He will be advising from a place of pain, which is fine, but even worse. Which one is it? Fine or worse? I think it's worse. A place of fear. Okay, I said, but even worse, a place of fear. That's what divorcees, men and women, tend to do. Advising from a perspective of pain and fear, not how to win. Okay, that's the focus. Sometimes they teach you how to win too, but that's usually not the focus, right? Long term relationships cannot thrive from a place of fear. You will lose the battle to fear itself 100% of the time. As good as some of Kevin Samuel's advices were, sadly, a lot of men only picked up fear from it, knowing fully well they were the ultimate simps. Okay? The actions speak louder than your words. Just because you call other people simps doesn't make you to not be a simp. I'm looking at your actions, okay? I'm looking at you crying over the fact that you used to simp and you can't get over it, right? Bad combination. So he's not ready. He needs to invest time in intensive coaching and healing, or else create additional angry sims on this YouTube streets. All right, so that's that. That's some of the stuff that I thought I wanted to share with you on this. If you just came in, rewind and watch all over. I shared so much gems on this right here. Okay, because again, I want to keep coming here from time to time, at least every other day. Subscribe to both channels, okay, and make sure you keep coming back. Okay. Um, with that being said, I think I may have maybe two other clips that I wanted to share with you here today. About Will and Jada. Everyone is still on their case. I don't know why. I think I know why. The society is sick. They'll rather just pull down anything that looks good just because they're imperfect. They have flaws, right? I understand it, but hopefully you understand it. I think the awareness is half the battle won. All right, so this is what Jada had to say recently. Let's watch it together.
About Oscar night, my deepest hope is that these two intelligent, capable men have an opportunity to heal, talk this out, and reconcile. The state of the world today, we need them both. And we all actually need one another more than ever. Until then, Will and I are continuing to do what we have done for the last 28 years. And that's keep figuring out this thing called life together. What alopecia actually is.
Now, I hate to tell you that I told you so, at least as of today. I could be wrong tomorrow, hopefully not. Everyone are basically waiting for these people to pull the trigger on their divorce. If they were going to be divorced, I think they would have done it a long time ago. They had enough events in their marriage to have made them divorce if they were going to divorce, right? And if they were going to divorce, it won't be because of the Oscars event. That's quite naive for the whole society to just be expecting that this is a terrible marriage, it's just gonna fall apart. People that goes on quote unquote red table talk, they joke around about bad marriage for life. You really think your words and you dragging them on the internet would cause them to divorce? I think it can cause Will to slap a bitch out of another man's house, which is terrible. Right? But I don't think it's good enough to get them to divorce. I think that's quite naive on the society's part, and the society needs to really start to look inwards. You as an individual start looking inwards and focus on your own, because you're not perfect. I'm not perfect, right? If it looks good on the surface, on the outside, it's because we work on it. It's because we've invested in it. If the grass seems greener on the other side, because we water it, right? It looks like the society is more excited about divorce news than people will say, listen, even though we've gone through a lot, we're staying together. That's what it looks like to me, right? So you can see that last statement there, right? Now a few people are angry because she's not taking responsibility. Let me tell you literally how many seconds this video is. Let me tell you how many seconds, okay? This video is literally 30 seconds. Like, you have zero context, almost zero context on what exactly she said altogether. But yet you're assuming. You know what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of yourself, just like you've been doing thus far. I've said it before. There are two mistakes that I can point out. I'm going to add one to it. There are two mistakes that the Smith family has made. Okay. Number one is this woke nonsense of sharing everything about ourselves is bullshit. You don't have to share shit about yourself. You should stop it altogether. Okay. The red table talk, your personal business, stop it. The second thing that Will personally did wrong, he did the first one too because he's the man in that relationship. And there's nothing that tells me that he's not being a man in that relationship. Never mind what all the lames on the internet are saying. Okay. But the second thing that he did wrong was to go on that stage for whatever reason to slap another man. Terrible mistake. A miss, a bad judgment in time, right? That's obvious. Obviously, right? The guy has walked the straight line for 30 years, right? But clearly, the lesson here is that there's nothing that you can do for the society that's ever going to be good enough if you're a public figure of any type. Nothing is going to be good enough. It's best that you focus on your value system and stop doing things for anyone else, right? So, as a third thing right now, the first thing and the first and only that are saying Jada done wrong with respect to the, society at large, the public. She didn't need to say anything at first. We should have waited to at least hear from Will Smith. This doesn't mean she's not taking responsibility or accountability. Again, I think it's just all bad judgment altogether. This idea we must address the public. You don't have to address shit. They don't owe the public anything. And they keep, this mistake right here. I don't think they really need to come out at all to say anything about it. If they do anything, everything has to be done after, like she said, Will and Chris Rock have spoken as men and figured things out privately. You see, letting go is one of the hardest things for human beings to do. It's going to be extremely hard to go through the process of letting go. They're doing a fine job at it already. She didn't need to make this statement. But again, they have a business to run. Who am I to tell them how they make a statement or not? But I'm talking to you. You don't know shit about this relationship, their relationship with Chris Rock. You don't know nothing about it. But yet you keep blowing hot hair about it, right? This is another example of a person that's blowing hot hair about it. I'm going to leave it at this, right? This is one of you guys, okay? She's under the pressure to fall in line and repeat the same stupid talking points. Vivica Fox, she needs to stay in her lane. She's going to make the same mistake, falling under pressure of society and the public to say something. You don't have to say shit. Sometimes, actually, it's much more profit to shut the hell up, unless there's real money attached to it. If she hasn't made a dime for making this statement, it's a stupid statement. Right? Especially knowing that your colleagues and these people are very powerful. They can remove your opportunities. That's a fact, okay? You may say, oh, they're not God. Yeah, some people are more influential, more powerful than others, okay? And the Will Smith family is much more powerful than the Vivica Fox any day of the week, at least for now, okay? But let's hear what she had to say.
Be a good partner. There was no accountability.
She's talking about good partner. She has no partners. Right? Now, this was a lady that I kind of slightly defended when everybody dragged her for bashing Kevin Samuels. I said, okay, she had an opinion. They dragged each other. Kevin Samuels herself. Kevin Samuels dragged her before he died, before he passed away, right? But look at this. Again, we're making a whole mess of ourselves. We don't know how to hold. We have zero code. There's no such thing as power in this life that we live in without code. You got to be under some kind of code. But we're very quick to drag ourselves. Listen to this, okay? She's talking about to be a good partner, accountable. What the hell are you talking about? You know nothing about those people. Anyway, I'm going to just play it all the way through.
Felt to be a good partner. There was no accountability. Will Smith was defending her honor. That was right.
We're defending our honor.
The reason he walked on stage and slapped because he felt like his wife had been offended. Mm-hmm. So for me to see no accountability as a partner.
So first of all, you don't know if she had any accountability. I could be wrong. You also could be wrong. You only had 30 seconds clip from whatever this show is going to be, right? Or maybe they show it already. I could be wrong. But I have a good feeling she hasn't seen the complete episode. But she's assumed that she hasn't held herself accountable at all, right? Somebody said, my deepest hope is that these two men come together. How much more accountability are we waiting for? That she apologizes to you or to the public or to her husband? Which one exactly? Maybe you can help yourself out in the comment area.
Also, let's not forget that Chris Rock was assaulted.
Oh, now she's caping for Chris Rock.
We cannot forget that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the whole public. What did I tell you about the society at large? Sick. Everyone is clapping. I mean, you go in the comment on the Shade Room, Instablog Niger, you can see them there. They're disgusted. Even women with Jada. Why? Why? Because they're not divorced yet? What happens after the divorce? Will you be happy? Would you call it accountability? I'm asking. I'm just asking.
For basically telling a joke that I really felt wasn't that bad. Let's not forget that this show was executive produced by Will Packer, an African-American man.
Yeah, they always claim they're caping for the community at large, but it's bullshit. It's cap. This is just another person that's looking to get on the good side of the public opinion. That's all this is, okay? If you think she cares an inch about the community, we're fooling ourselves, right? Aren't we?
This night was a night of African American and diversity for brown and black people.
I think we could destroy this marriage for the community at large. What do you think? I'm being sarcastic. That's terrible.
That now will forever be scarred. I have love for the Smiths. I know their children. I've watched them grow up. I just wish that we could have had a little bit more accountability, and for it to not seem so self-righteous on Jada's part.
She had the audacity to call her self-righteous. She had the audacity to call her self-righteous. Where are we going with this? Where are we going with this, right? So again, if my stream is bad today, I apologize, okay? I apologize. We'll continue to work harder. Probably need to clean the computer, but I'm paying attention. We'll continue to work at this. With that being said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you've been enlightened and educated. I will see you on the next one.